better go.
Billable hours are killing. Call to order. President Michelson presiding. Thank you all very much for showing up, and thank you to my fellow board members for allowing me the pleasure of being president again.
Well, we just didn't want a five-person debate to figure out how to.
Okay, so calling to order the public hearing, and we're going to hear from our senior demographer tonight. So take it away, senior demographer.
Well, thank you, President Mickelson, members of the board, and members of the community who are here tonight. My name is Dr. Justin Levitt, Vice President of National Demographics. Shalice also sends her regards. Her daughter is giving birth this week, so wow. I am substituting for her. Now, I helped or worked with Doug on drawing these plans. And we worked with the city of Half Moon Bay as well. Or I worked with the city of Half Moon Bay when they were going through this process. So I'm happy to kind of talk about some of these issues from my experience as well as what we did in the maps. To kind of just go through the basics, this is the first public hearing we have to discuss the maps. This is a process that's laid out by AB 350. We had 2 initial public hearings to take testimony on the criteria and factors. We had a good discussion about how our other overlapping jurisdictions did when they went through this process. This is the first time we're really looking at the specific maps, which will be followed by another public hearing in 2 weeks, where we will again go through the maps and take any comments, questions, requests for revision before we adopt or before the board is asked to select a map at February 11th. So that's kind of the date where we're looking at choosing a specific map. What this means for us is that we have time right now to request changes, to look into anything that we need to do and bring back to you for these future board meetings. Now, whatever plan is chosen will have 3 zones up for election in November of 2020. Also next year, or actually I should say this year, it's 2020 now, we're going to be completing the 2020 census this year. That's going to give us new population numbers in early 2021 that we will use to take a look at the numbers of the seats to make sure, bless you, everything is still legally compliant before, and if necessary, redraw the map before the last 2 zones hold election in 2022. Yes.
The question that I had is this. I know that we haven't really communicated with the person who brought the matter to our attention, but I was wondering, because we're so close to the 2020 census, and because we've really engaged this in all, with all due respect and with all intention to perform, would it be worth a letter to just say, how about taking a pause and waiting for the 2020 census, and you can tell we're serious, we're going to move forward. Could we just take a little pause and come back and do it once instead of goofing around twice? Because I feel it's very frustrating for the local community, for everyone involved, to do it in such a strange timing. And I just wonder, I mean, if we were avoiding or, filing a counter, complaint or whatever, I would understand, but we're in nowhere near that. We could even write some kind of a letter of intention or a guarantee that we're involved in the process. But it just seems like doubling our cost, this close back to back, I just feel like we're making a mistake, financial and a mistake in terms of timing.
No, I think I understand the question. Can we?
Yeah.
Yeah. Would care to address it briefly?
Of course. Your logic is completely sound. Unfortunately, AB 350 has this time period in it. We can ask any question you would like of the council. I may want to defer to Pat, who's had some conversations with this council in another context. I don't know if you'd be comfortable talking about that, because I think the answer would be no. I guess that's what I'm getting to.
Okay.
We don't have any leverage except good logic. And again, we can ask, and I'd be happy to ask, but my sense is that the answer would be no, and maybe Pat, you want to?
Yeah, I feel pretty confident based on dealing with this attorney for another client, where he did grant one extension for 30 days to actually adopt the resolution of intention, but he was pretty clear on the phone, I'm only doing it as a professional courtesy, won't do another extension. And my guess is what you're requesting is basically to avoid doing zones for a 2-year period. And I am pretty confident he will say no. But like Kim said, we could ask if you'd like us to.
Yeah, my feeling is it's kind of a non-starter. Yeah, I absolutely understand the logic behind, it's kind of a non-starter, and my feeling is we got a PowerPoint to get through.
But,
Did a quick
but
question?
we've already hired the demographer.
Demographer.
Yeah, that's it, demographer. And we're gonna have to hire him again after the next census, so we don't save that much money
So,
by delaying anyways.
if I can address that, maybe and maybe not. Because our hope is that we can draw up a set of plans that, at least when you look at this in 2021, will still continue to be legally defensible.
And you give us a discount on the 2021, right?
Well, and so actually I was just talking about this with your general manager right before the meeting.
I don't.
In 2021, once we get the new census data, look for the county to start saying to all of the districts, like, hey, if you need to check out to see whether you're still compliant with the law or not, we're going to offer you a huge discount on just getting your numbers, just giving you the basic, using your current lines. Are you still under that 10% deviation? Are you still meeting the requirements of the Voting Rights Act? There are a number of demographic firms, including NDC, that are already starting to work with the counties on getting this in place so that counties will be able to offer to all the special districts within the county this service at a much cheaper price than just hiring a demographer full scale.
Saving
that
money
way-
is good.
Yeah, and based on the 10% deviation, and, we do track to some degree growth rates here through meter installations. I would guess we're going to stay within that deviation, and so I don't see a big trigger here. So let's move forward with the PowerPoint, please.
And that's actually a very good way of beginning to talk about the factors that we used in preparing the maps. Because this, if we go to the next slide, on this left-hand column, federal laws, these are the factors that analysis in 2021 will have to consider. This is what the Supreme Court tells us each plan must comply with. Equal population, that's where that 10% number came in. That means that the difference in population between the largest and smallest zone has to stay under 10%. So if every zone were to have 100 people, you could have a range from 95 to 105, or from 94 to 104, within that 10% window between the largest and smallest. In addition, following the Federal Voting Rights Act, while race cannot be the only factor or even the predominant factor behind the creation of a zone, it must be one of many factors that we consider holistically as we look at the maps. Oftentimes, what the law requires us to do is look at race alongside many of the criteria on that right-hand column, like communities of interest, for example, areas that share similar issues, problems, historical development, residential patterns like multifamily versus single-family housing, renters versus owners, all sorts of factors that we can consider. There may be factors specific to the water district or specific to overlapping jurisdictions. For example, looking at how the school district, looking at how the city of Half Moon Bay, looking at your jurisdictional boundaries. Where does that actual city boundary fall compared to our lines? Those all go into communities of interest. And communities of interest is one of these factors that the courts say that we need to take into account, that the new state law requires that we look at. But they don't define communities of interest in any sort of useful or meaningful way. They leave it up to each district, city, school district, and so forth to define what your communities of interest are. That's where a lot of our conversation has been so far. That's what we're going to continue to have. In addition, compactness and contiguity, both are about the shape of the boundary districts or the zones. Do they follow natural and man-made boundaries? Is it easy for people to tell which district they live in? These are in balance with communities of interest. The law recognizes that sometimes the best way to represent a community is maybe not the most compact approach, or vice versa. Sometimes they go hand in hand. This neighborhood is a very clear area, it needs to be kept together. Planned future growth, as we just talked about, we have a slightly better idea here because of water meter installations than many school districts or city councils actually have. And so if we know that there has been growth in an area or a new community built, we can take that into account, particularly as we look at how to reduce that impact on 2021. Finally, respecting the voters' wishes is the principle that the voters of this district have elected a board, and that redistricting should not be used as a way of targeting a particular board member. The new state law, which doesn't actually apply to special districts, but it applies to cities and counties, actually says that, well, you can't make respecting voters' wishes, you can't make incumbency a priority, but it can be a secondary factor once you've considered all of the primary factors like equal population, Voting Rights Act, and communities of interest. And so with these goals, we've done an analysis, if we go to the next slide, looking at the Latino population in particular, and for our Voting Rights Act analysis. Now, what we've noticed is that there's two areas in the district with substantial Latino population. The first is sort of the area we're in now, the old portion of the city of Half Moon Bay, east of Highway 1, especially along I-92, or not I-92, Highway 92, as you go through all the farms that are still within where the blocks are still within the district. That is because we're getting farm workers in those areas, in addition to farm owners. Also at the south end of the district, again east of Highway 1, we see another community that's heavily Latino east in the very south end of the district. Now, as you can see, these are not geographically compact. They're not next to each other, but there might be some ways of connecting them in some of the maps if the board chooses. So this gets into those communities of interest, compactness, contiguity. Does it make sense that those two communities have a shared connection? Or do they not have a shared connection? Or is it something that where they're better served by having two different representatives? That's one of the factors we're going to look at in the draft maps. Okay, so looking at the draft maps themselves, a couple things I'll say generally about the maps. The first thing I want to talk about is that basically each of these maps has three distinct areas. The north, the El Granada community, the sort of the central area in Half Moon Bay proper, particularly the downtown, Half Moon Old Town, and then the south end of the district. The south end of the district, in the Ocean Colony, and I'm blanking on the names of some of these neighborhoods, even though I was just writing them all down, but the very south end. Now, what this means is that these are often jigsaws. So if you like the north end of the green map, but the south end of the purple map, sometimes it's really easy to combine them with these maps. One of the advantages of having a long, thin district. Each of these maps has a different option for how we divide the El Granada neighborhood to the north. They all have different options. El Granada is actually too large to be kept in one area or one zone. It has to be divided at least in two, and there may be reasons for dividing it in more than two as well. Things that it's such as the way Highway 1 divides the community as well. In this one, El Granada is basically divided north-south so that we try to come up with as much of a north-south boundary as we can, recognizing that the census blocks in this area are often actually very large in terms of population. There aren't many of them, and the ones there are have 100 to 150 people each. Then we have two districts here in the central portion of basically split by Highway 1 almost all the way down to the central part of the city, where 92, south of where the 92 comes in. and then 2 in the south. And what we've done in the south end here is this is a map that links that Latino community in the older part of the town where we are now to the very south end of the city. This is something that the city of Half Moon Bay discussed doing. They did not end up adopting a map that separated Ocean Colony and Pelican Point, but they talked about it, and this will be a map that does that. This does create a district that is 55% Latino by total population. That includes everybody who lives there, according to those 2010 census counts. But if you look at the numbers, you'll see that that zone is only 25% Latino by eligible voters, citizens of voting age. And that eligible voter count is what the courts use when they look at voting rights issues. And so what we're seeing is that we have very low citizenship rates among Latinos throughout the district. There's actually a very 10 percentage point drop between total Latino population and eligible Latino voters. And so again, this map was designed to show you an option that separates out based on keeping keeping Ocean Colony and Pelican Point in separate areas and using Highway 1 as a major dividing line, particularly in the city of Half Moon Bay. In contrast, the purple map looks at using the Cabrillo school district boundaries for their trustee areas as much as possible. In particular, the areas 4 and 5 in purple and orange at the bottom of the map, that is the Cabrillo trustee area boundary there. Now, Cabrillo does not follow your district exactly. They have a much larger catchment area than the water district. And so, for example, they're able to keep all of El Granada in one trustee area because they have 2 trustee areas that are entirely outside of your water district north. But we are able to kind of have this areas 1 and 2 are essentially kept together more or less in one trustee area. And then what's here, areas 3 and 4, are generally kept together in one trustee area in the Cabrillo School District maps. It's not an exact alignment, but it's very close. And then looking at the tan map looks at following the city council's boundaries as much as possible. So you'll see that the city council did that connection between the old portion of the city, this portion of Half Moon Bay, and the neighborhood to the south. They use Highway 1 as a dividing line as we do here, even though it's basically one little sliver of land east of Highway 1 that connects the central part of Half Moon Bay to that little neighborhood to the south of the city. Now this does put Ocean Colony and Pelican Point together. All of the communities west of Highway 1 in the south are kept together. And basically this creates an entire area, as the city does, that's entirely east of Highway 1 in Area 3. And so these are really 3 different options. They're all within our 10% deviation. The green at 6.5 is our lowest deviation. Tan at 8.5 is our highest deviation. So within a very small range here. It does give us some room to play around with some of these numbers. All of these maps have been posted online for people to take a look at. We also have an interactive web viewer that I'm happy to show you if you'd like to see it, where you can zoom in and out, search for addresses. It really is a lot of things that you can't make out on a paper map at any size. So I'm happy to answer any of your questions, and I look forward to hearing your comments on the maps.
So the first question I would have is, have you received, these have been up how long?
A week.
Have we received any comment?
No.
And I'll just say, that's not unusual for a water district.
Yeah. Directors have questions?
I should have asked earlier, the 2020 census would be effective with which election?
2022.
2024?
2022.
It would?
Yeah,
Okay, so that would affect the 2022 election?
that's right.
So what's here, as far as zones for 2022 might change? Anyway.
Right, so these are,
Just a tad.
No, I'm just,
Yeah.
that would be, okay, and there are 2 little pieces of us, east and south, 2 sections small on the interactive map, but not on these. Anybody live in those? There's one south, way down.
The one to the
past-
south has 3 people in it.
Is that ours? That we actually service
They
them?
need representation.
Yeah, well, and if you'll notice on all of the paper copies of the maps in your packet, they do have a note on there about
Oh, I know
which-
the note, but it's not, you
areas.
can't see it.
Yeah,
My understanding
Yeah, I didn't know we had those there.
from talking to people here at the Water District is that was an area that was carved out in 1947 as a possible development for the Water District. I think somebody intended to do a development year, in 1947. And so but there's, it's vacant land. I think, my
Okay,
understanding, it might be open space land.
How does that tie to us? I don't understand how we legally.
It's just part of our district.
It is, and there's one out to the east up in, off 92 someplace way out there.
so it basically follows 92 east or eastward toward
Yeah.
the city.
Because nobody lives there either.
And it's just, it's mostly the farming properties that you
Okay.
pass through as you go there.
All right. And then, okay, so
And there's a couple hundred people that live out that east-west extension. On all of the maps, it's very clear which area that would be in because it's linked geographically, for example, in tan to Area 3.
3.
we
Okay,
just-
so it would be all linked to 3. then.
Yeah, we just
No,
cut it
just
off
asking.
so we could, because it's a very big area.
And the other one would be linked to 5?
That's right, on all of the maps.
Okay, fine, I got it.
Did you say that tan was the closest to the 10% deviation?
It has the largest
But I thought you
deviation.
said 10.5,
So 8.5,
8.5.
8.5.
And the
What's
purple,
purple?
what was the deviation?
The purple is at 8.3.
And,
Or 8.3, so
Yeah.
it's very, those are almost,
And I'll
Not
say on
different.
purple, it's driven by Area 5. If we want to go back a slide to the purple map.
yeah, I like
So
purple rain.
we go back up a slide. The purple is driven by Area 5, which has a 5% deviation. Again, because we're following the school district line exactly here, while they do have an area south of your district, it doesn't have very many people in it.
Yeah,
And so the other 4 areas are basically combinations of 2 areas. This is like the northern half of their trustee Area 5.
and in Area 5, what kind of population is that? Is that like 5,000 people or?
So it's mostly, there's Ocean Colony, the Pelican Point. There's that neighborhood.
Kenyatta Cove's in there, too.
Yeah.
That's the big one.
But what kind of population number is that? I know I can look that
It's on
up.
the sheet.
It's,
Can I ask,
Yeah.
when you talk about deviation, are you
3,769.
talking about deviation in registered voters or deviations
Right.
in?
so with deviation, we're talking about total population. So we use the official census everyone counts number. So it includes children, includes non-citizens.
So let me understand this. So what you're saying is that the deviation that you can't exceed is a deviation by just head count,
That's right.
irrespective of whether they're registered voters, whether they're green card holders or
That's-
visitors or whatever they might be. But at the same time, the courts are going to decide fairness based on voter records, not on any of those numbers. Is that right?
That's right. And what we have is 2 separate strains of law. The first comes from the one person, one vote issue that was raised by the courts in the early 1960s, where even as recently as 2010, they said total population is what you use for this. The state of California says in law total population is what you use for that. The other vein comes out of the Federal Voting Rights Act of 1965 and the way the courts have interpreted that over the years. The Ninth Circuit said back in the 1980s that we don't use total population for that. We try to use this estimate of citizens of voting age.
Citizens of voting age is, now, how do you know that somebody who's not a registered voter could be a registered voter?
So this comes from the census again. But the question, the census has a short form where everyone fills out every 10 years. They also have an ongoing survey called the American Community Survey. And the American Community Survey asks whether or not you are a citizen. If so, are you a natural born citizen? Did you get a green card? They ask whether or not, and they also ask your age. And so it comes out of that database.
So that's just an estimate.
It is. It's calculated at the block group level. So a block group is a collection
I know
of
what a block group
blocks together. Yeah.
And so, but with these small numbers, that means the variance is very large.
It can be.
Yeah.
But
And
the
another
courts have
question-
said this is what we use.
Another question I have, in this map where you have the concentrations of the minority we're trying to
Mhm.
give opportunity to here, do you have the registered voters in those areas as well?
So,
Because we could form a district that had a majority of this minority, but actually had a minority of voters of that majority.
what we
And
have.
That wouldn't really,
Yeah.
how would the courts consider that? I mean, that would be another way
So-
of essentially obviating the whole act, the whole.
That's a really good
rights act.
question, and the courts have said it's about the opportunity to elect, not a guarantee of election. And so there are cases, many cases actually, throughout the state, throughout the country, where you draw majority districts, majority Latino districts, majority Black districts, majority Asian districts, that don't end up electing a candidate of that particular race or ethnic group.
Well, that's very likely
And-
here, because in every single one of these
Mm-hmm.
cases, no matter how you divide the pie, it's roughly a very small fraction in every single district.
Mm.
And there's no way we can change that unless there's a big change in the population here, and that's not likely.
No, and of course, we've seen the California Voting Rights Act come into a lot of communities that, where it's not possible to draw a majority non-white district or a majority of a particular group, like majority Latino, majority
You're
African
certainly
American.
a poster boy for that,
And-
because it's impossible to not have majority white in every district you could possibly imagine.
And, I mean, there was one city that received a demand letter where the only way you could draw a majority non-white district was by including a prison in it. And we're like, but nobody votes in the prison, they can't vote. And the attorney in that case was like, I don't care, it's on paper, it's a majority non-white district, so,
In some
this
states,
is kind of the craziness of the California Voting Rights Act that we're seeing around the state.
So, well, go ahead.
No, I just another couple of questions. In the, you're the expert, obviously, you've done a lot of this stuff. Do these three maps, in their present configuration, in your view and in legal view, meet the requirements of the Act?
Absolutely.
State Act and the, I don't know, whatever Act.
We believe that any of these would meet the
When you
bait
did
requirements.
these, did you provide any weight to any of these being one more than the other? The 5 or 6 or 7 things listed here, were they all
So-
taken with equal weight?
So the criteria on the left outweigh the criteria on the right.
The federal laws
Yes,
outweigh the,
yes.
Yeah.
But everything in that right-hand column is equally weighted.
everything on the right is equally weighted.
That's
So
right.
there's no weighing of 10 for this and 7.
No,
And these 3 maps are the result of your.
that's right. So they all are
all the
popular,
magic and
yeah.
the numbers and the crunching to meet.
And the
7
federal
things on the right
requirements-
And the 3 things on the
And there's
left.
basically 2 federal requirements. Equal population within that 10% using the total population count.
Okay,
And following the requirements of the Voting Rights Act, how they've been interpreted by the Supreme Court. That we should pay attention to race, not as the predominant factor or only factor, but as one of many factors that we consider.
okay, now on map 10, if you divvy it up somewhat like you showed number 4, with the strip like the Half Moon Bay did, that seems to have a little gerrymandering flavor to it. I'm just asking, is that
Well,
what it does?
So,
So, how do you,
yeah, I mean,
there's other stuff outside of that, but that does look like it's built. for a specific
And this one
purpose.
is actually built around the city council district.
No, I get that.
So this is essentially what the city council decided to end up with.
No, I understand.
And so we want to, we had a discussion about that at the last meeting, and we wanted to show you what that would look like if we brought it into.
No, that's fine. I'm
Yeah.
glad to see that. 'cause
Yeah.
that's
Which one is that?
interesting.
Tan,
Tan.
tan is interrupted by purple.
Yeah.
I have a question. Yeah. What's the next step?
Yeah, because it sounds like the maps meet the criteria.
Right.
Legal?
We are legally defensible.
Yep.
What are the next
So the
steps?
next steps,
Do we get, can we change these color nominations, or will we be forever the purple water district of Coastside County?
No, it's a zone.
So,
It becomes a
once-
zone. That's
well, okay, so two questions. First of all, once you adopt a map,
zone.
it won't be a color anymore. It'll just be the adopted map. And we'll call it the adopted map, and we send it to the registrar. They'll send you back the official lines.
Well, we can't pick one until after we've had all the public
You
meetings,
can't
right?
pick one, but what I'll say is this, next steps tonight. If there are any maps that are non-starters, that you don't like at all, that you don't want the public to consider anymore, you can eliminate them. Now, we don't suggest eliminating it down to one at this point, because we want to make sure that the public has something to look at. But if there is any change you wanted to see, or you wanted to, any revisions to the maps, you can also request that tonight, and we will provide for the next meeting those revisions.
I don't like tan, I like purple.
I like purple too.
I like purple, I don't like tan.
I like purple.
Should we, and we have three
I
maps?
didn't like,
Well, we can also
I don't
make
know.
adjustments to these maps, right?
yeah, sure.
So we could actually move neighborhoods around as long as it
Your
does.
numbers work.
Until the numbers work.
I would rather leave that to the experts. I think that puts us in the weeds,
I think we have to give
doing
them-
the work of the experts, and I think that may come at a risk. And
Try to give them our,
The thing to do would be to give conceptual ideas and let the
yeah,
expert.
yeah.
That's
We've employed
many-
experts. We are
Could we
not
take
experts.
a straw poll of all the people that like one map or another?
Yeah, and that's
I
kind
like
of.
purple. How many people like purple?
If we,
Well, why are we voting now? We got two more
No, I'm
hearings.
just trying to get
We have
flavor.
two more hearings.
No,
Why don't
we just look at
let-
the-
Well, we're just doing a straw
trying to
poll.
get
Straw
the-
poll,
some of the
non-binding
board
straw poll is
sensitivity.
completely within our rights.
I like purple as sort of.
Yeah,
I would-
that makes most sense to me.
I would like to recommend, though,
Some choose purple.
purple water has a connotation of being recycled undrinkable. So I'd like for purple to be blue,
Oh, I like that.
because blue
All in
water
favor.
is clean water and
Change your
drinkable
name to
water.
blue, is that?
We are an
And I'm sorry, I know that these
action-oriented.
are strange inputs, but I really like purple,
Yeah, I'm
but
on
I don't
blue.
want to have purple be the
Can you
map
do
we
that?
pick.
Is that?
Yeah, can we
according
do
to
it?
Federal regulation?
well,
That part of the laws?
Well, I wonder if
Well,
purple
we
is
can-
defendable in terms of
we can
the,
take that direction.
of the,
We did ask that question though, and
well, but it basically buries the Latino vote.
So
Which?
purple is the map that doesn't create a majority Latino district by total population. Now, it does have a 23% Latino district by citizen voting age population,
It
which
does.
is only 2 percentage points lower than green and 3 percentage points
Right.
lower than
It does
tan.
have four.
That's pretty close.
That's registered voters, not eligible voters.
If you wanted to increase the Latino population, all you would have to do is that little strip east of down.
I know.
If that was something you wanted to consider as a purple 2 or a blue 2, would be happy to bring that back. But that would be the very simple way to,
That's the tan one, right? That's the,
yeah.
yeah.
What
you
that would
would-
also mean, however, is that 4 and 5 no longer match the
Well,
school
I'm just
district
curious whether or not
line there.
essentially doing something that clearly buries the vote, which that one does, doesn't have the impact of raising the legal issue that we're not satisfying the federal standard.
Well, so the federal, like I said, the federal standard uses that eligible voter number, not the total population count. However, of course, it comes into play with communities of interest and all of that. If there is if the board decides there is a clear connection, the way that, for example, the city decided that there was a connection between that south and that central area, you know, you could easily adjust this map. As you see, 5 is the most overpopulated area. We would be taking people out of 5 and putting them into 4.
But one of the comments that I really liked was, didn't you say that the blue map follows the school, is quite closely aligned with the school district?
That's
And
right, and that
and I
4,
think that
But they go farther south and they also go farther north.
But I think being aligned with another group's boundaries
The purple
helps
and tan
immensely.
map is aligned with the
We
city,
sell
so
water,
what's
we
the
don't
difference?
teach kids. I mean,
so
so.
if I could make a suggestion.
so
Yeah,
to-
please, yeah.
One of the things that it sounds like we might want to look at is eliminating the tan map from consideration. I think we've heard
Yes.
from everyone. We can rename this to blue, and we can come back with a blue 2 that has that connection that will raise the Latino population, especially the citizen voting age population.
So it would leave 4 on purple where it is, but would take that blue line and bring it down
Or
the
it'll
west,
take
the eastern edge, and add on the little piece that sticks out into Moonridge. basically.
that heavily Latino community.
So that would
south.
come down. Now, that would add population, right?
It's such a
That would,
stretch.
well, you see, it is a stretch, and that's why I don't think we eliminate blue, I'll call it now. We don't eliminate this map, so it's
Right.
still a
We
map
add
that
a-
we
a
can
blue-
consider. But we show you at the
Blue
next
two.
meeting what the effect of making that change would be.
Blue 2.
Well, isn't it the case that the tan map has the greatest concentration of voting Latinos of any of these? And if you also add to that the people with Latin sounding
Well-
names, that group is the largest in the tan map.
So I think it is, I mean,
If
it
you just
is
did a pie
numerically the
count,
largest. Statistically,
Instead of doing
it's,
percentages, you do head
I say,
count.
The tan is
statistically,
out.
it's almost identical between the green and the tan maps.
Okay.
So you would still have the green map in there that has that feature.
How's that possible?
I don't know. So you would make a blue, a blue,
I'll say it's possible
line.
because the really heavy Latino neighborhood is only the area east of Highway 1. And that's not enough population by itself to create a or to create a full district. That's not our full zone here. So it has to get population somewhere else. Green takes that down and connects it to Pelican Point in the south. Tan takes it across Highway 1 to connect it to the neighborhood on the other side of the freeway. Either neighborhood you're connecting to is not a very heavily Latino neighborhood, but they've still got the same core neighborhoods connected. They've got the 2 Latino concentrations we've identified connected on both the tan and the green maps.
so make a blue.
Okay,
Um,
so it's,
Any,
So it's just summarizing the direction.
green,
yeah, it's sounding like elimination of tan, renaming purple to blue in a blue,
A blue
Prime.
2.
blue 2.
blue two, okay.
Or we'll we want to show that it's still based
Yeah.
on the blue map,
Does that
but it'll make those
meet
changes.
everyone's concerns? Because otherwise, I'm afraid we're gonna be drawing the maps instead of the experts.
Well, we're supposed to participate in drawing.
No, I know,
That's the
but
whole
we-
point of the
No,
process.
but
no,
Now,
this
are
is
we
good.
supposed to be doing it, but so are people from the
If
community.
they are doing it, it's legally
just not here.
defensible. At the end of this exercise,
I'd like to see the
I
change
hope
to
to have a
blue.
legally defensible map,
The
and I
change
think
to
that's
blue would be
paramount
good.
here.
Well, a legally defensible map is gonna go by the head counts, it's not gonna go by what we wish, it's gonna go by objective data, and
Well,
I'm
we'll
just
see when it
concerned
does
that
the prime, right?
we're adding these numbers up.
Remember Monty's
But
got-
I'll say on purple, 4 is underpopulated, 5 is overpopulated.
Yeah.
So making
the-
this change is going to actually probably bring the deviation down in
So
blue.
the area that's really doing it is this area that's essentially just a little bit south of the Safeway Shopping Center, and behind the
Yeah, so you see that,
It's
if we go,
Kelly
yeah.
to the shopping center on the west side of the highway. That's where there's a concentration of,
Well, it's actually right here, Old Town, the old
and here,
neighborhood.
right, so
in
it's here,
And then
it's
it's
it's Miramontes Road at the
Right.
end there,
and then very much to the south,
yeah.
And Moonridge, right?
yeah.
And the one on,
Moonridge.
right across from Coastal Rep. that area.
And TAN puts those groups together, and green does slightly, but the tan does it more.
But if you look at the numbers, you get a 55% Latino district by total population in both maps. We get a 25 versus a 26%.
You don't have 55% anywhere. What 55% are you talking about?
If you look at the,
I've looked at these numbers. There's not a single one of these districts
if you look
that
at
have 55%
the total
Latinos.
population,
You're talking about 55% of the Latinos in the entire community. That's what, is that-
no, I'm talking about
What percentage are you talking
He's
about?
gonna,
the Latino percent of total population.
So in other words, 55% of the total Latinos in the entire service area.
No. What I mean is that, in a specific area, 55% of the total population, including children, including non-citizens, are Latino.
That's not true. Look at your own numbers. I mean, you got your own numbers here on the back. It doesn't
Yeah.
show that anywhere. And if you look at the head counts, that doesn't show that either.
It's purple. Tan.
So if you look at area 4 in the tan map,
You want the population too? I have the actual population.
it says 55% in the tan map,
Oh,
area
my
4.
goodness, in writing, it says 55%?
Right here, 55%.
Don't
Yeah,
you
so
love-
I-
Don't you love a statistician
the-
that knows his or her
Numbers.
statistics?
and then in the green map,
Fantastic.
area 5 is 53% Latino by total population.
Well, that was close. I'd call
So
it
they're
close enough.
they're
Very close.
statistically very
Yeah,
close to each
but-
other.
Yeah, that's 55% Latinos, but you go down to voting age and you go down, it drops to 29%. You go down to registered voters, it drops to 21%.
Yeah, and that's what we're
So
talking
what we're
about.
talking
the
about is
difference.
putting essentially together a group that basically has non-citizens in it as the majority of the Latinos. And that satisfies the state requirement, but it doesn't satisfy the federal requirement. So why would we
Give him a
do
chance
that?
to answer, please. We need to give the gentleman a couple of minutes to answer. So-
Yeah. So it's not, I mean, this is one thing we see with the Latino community in general. Citizenship rates are lower. They're a much younger demographic than, for example, the white or black populations. And so what we see here is and everywhere, by total population, the district is 29% Latino. By citizen voting age population, the district as a whole is only 17% Latino. There's a big drop in that Latino population. There's an even bigger drop in places where the Latino population is concentrated, because that's where actually we're most likely to see non-citizens. It's where we're most likely to see concentrations of younger people.
I agree with that, but what you told us earlier was that the federal law takes precedence here, and the federal law looks at voters, not at.
That's right, and that's why we said that each of these maps are defensible.
She said
Because
they're defensible.
purple,
Take his word for it.
23% district,
Barely.
No, but it's, if,
you can't
this
draw
is-
higher than a
This isn't the
20.
exact science that you may like it to be. This is the real world. I mean, there are things.
That's the real
that-
world, and we might end up in court.
But there,
because it's
well,
the real world.
I'm not thinking we will, I don't know why. I think
These
we'll do-
are, we have two attorneys in the room, and we have a demographer with a PhD in demography. So I think it's a fool's errand to start arguing with two attorneys and a professional demographer. So I really want to tone down the rhetoric and tone down the argumentative tone towards someone who is doing this district a service to protect us from lawsuits down the road. Thank you.
If you do blue,
Proceed.
blue 2, and you add that little piece, that will ratchet up the purple mat level 5 or region 5, zone 5, to above 32%, right? It's 32% now. It would probably make it closer to 50, wouldn't it?
Yeah, actually the area 4, but yes.
Yeah, I'm at
yes,
4.
yeah.
It'll be up there
Yeah.
with the other two.
And in terms of citizen voting age population, it will add probably a percentage or two to that, so
Okay,
it'll be
no,
close to
so-
the greener.
Okay, sounds good.
I think it's.
So, looking at the table on the back side, you have an abbreviation ACS Population Estimate. What does ACS stand for?
That stands for the American Community Survey.
Got it. So that's the one that says how many peoples are here, whereas the one above it says how many voters are. So the 3,500 would be the total number of voters, and the 4,000 would be the total number of people. So the top, am I
The
reading
top,
this right?
this top row, the total population,
Yeah.
that's the 2010 census population.
Okay, so then
And then-
census population, meaning people or voters?
That's everyone, everyone.
That's everyone.
Yeah.
Then what's the ACS population has 4,000?
So
we
that
gain
is-
extra 500 people.
So that is the, so as I mentioned with the data, we have the census from the 2010, 2020, 20, and so forth.
Right.
And then we have the American Community Survey, which is an annual survey the census publishes. Basically replacing what used to be the old long form of the census, where they used to ask about 8% of people who took the census questions. And they've replaced that with the American Community Survey, where every year they ask about 800,000 households. All of the questions they used to put on the long form of the census. That is the data set that citizen voting age population comes from. We also give you that population estimate from the same year, American Community Survey, so that you can look at citizen voting age and the population from actually a more recent update. Now, because in a jurisdiction as small as this, these are estimates. The courts know it, they don't care about that. But, you know, anybody who knows anything about statistics and estimation will tell you that it may look like, you know, for example, a district has gained 500 people. That could be because some people were accidentally estimated to be on one side of a street rather than the other. It's an estimation. But it gives us, especially in cities that have grown fast or areas that are growing fast, kind of more recent numbers.
But is it legally binding?
No.
So it's just sort of for reference?
Right, especially because it's the same data set that citizen voting age population comes from. And so one question we often get is, okay, so what percentage of the population from the same survey are citizens of voting age?
Okay, thank
So
you.
how much do they downsample to get that estimate? I mean, in other words, when they run that sample in the census, they're supposed to run everyone. But, so that's a
In the
population.
American Community Survey surveys approximately 800,000 households a year, and they use a 5-year moving average.
100,000 in the country,
800,000 nationally.
nationally. So that means that in this community, we're talking about 5 people with 10 people?
Quite possibly. They're,
Basically, these numbers are just nonsense.
the
Yeah.
courts.
Don't even listen to
the-
them.
I mean, it's just the courts have required that we
Good.
use this information.
But that's
Yeah.
what the
I
data
mean,
says.
basically, we're saying that these
And-
numbers are based on maybe 3 people that they asked a question to in this community.
Yeah,
out
and
of
I'll just say,
25,000. That's
Yeah.
nuts.
There have been states and communities that have raised all of these issues in the courts, and the answers the courts have given is that we don't care. These are the numbers to use.
I know.
Don't try to make us
Majesty
care
of
about
the law.
statistics.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
but we need to be clear
Yeah.
about what these numbers mean.
Mm-hmm.
And we shouldn't overinterpret them. And since the real goal here is to basically address the issue that was brought to us by the California law that says that we are not giving a minority population in this community an equal opportunity to elect somebody to the elected bodies of this community, that's what we should be focused on. And so to my mind, what we ought to be looking at is not percentages, but numbers of people. And you know those numbers, you have them. So let's look at the head counts in these categories, because that's really what matters. We ought to be basing.
I think we
our
have to
dec-
use the data that's required by law for us to move to.
We're not
doing
going to be
what
the
we're
district that
supposed to.
reinvents the wheel. We're complying with,
That's
we're
fine.
complying with the law. This
I'm
is not,
happy to
I'm
do
not
this.
asking you
This is
to
not the
break
first
the
time
law, and we're not breaking the law, but if you look at these numbers here,
But they
these
won't change
percentages.
anything in the sense
Yeah,
that
they
you can
do.
make any,
These-
I don't
these
think you
numbers-
can draw maps that would look any different.
These numbers add up to more than 100%.
okay, so I think we're going to have to move forward here. Clearly, we have a dissenting opinion amongst 5, which is, you know, you're entirely within your rights to dissent. However, I believe there are 4 of us up here who believe we've hired a very competent firm to draw our maps, and I would urge us to move forward instead of arguing this to death, to no avail. It's just going to be, I mean, if you want to do a straw vote right now to move forward,
Chris.
my guess it's going to be a 4-1, and the loudest voice doesn't necessarily prevail.
Chris, this is not a matter about the veracity of this group of demographers. They haven't said anything that I find is not true. I think everything they've said is exactly true. I think what we're talking about is what do these numbers really mean? And is there
I think
some
that's
way?
beyond the scope of this analysis.
There's no law that says that we can't consider head count instead of percentages. And look at these percentages, they add up to more than 100%. It's because it's not a percentage of the people in these districts, it's a percentage of another group of people. That's a different thing. And, you know, we could create a district that has a majority of Latinos and none of them can vote. That certainly would be not the intent of the
Not what I read in
law.
the data.
We want to avoid that, so we need to know what we're looking at.
You have been heard. What I'm not hearing is two other voices in support of your direction. This is a 5-member board, three is a majority. I'm not hearing two other voices. If there are two other voices present here, please speak up and we will go the direction that Director Larimer would like to go. Otherwise, we're going to proceed.
This is a public hearing.
So are we voting to what we
No,
can listen
You're
to?
not
No, we
really
just-
getting input, but you
We got
do
input.
need to provide your demographers.
Yeah, so I'm
direction.
looking for majority
And now
direction
maybe an
for,
opportunity, I don't know, Kim, if you've been, there's a few times where you've been trying to jump in. I wanted to give you the opportunity if you had anything to add, or if not, that's okay too.
I just wanted to assure the board that you will not be presented a map that does not comply with federal law.
Right.
yeah, and that's my understanding from the beginning.
Right.
And we asked you to do two things, get rid of tan and add the line on blue.
Yeah, and before I go, I do want to open the public, make sure we have the public
yes.
hearing.
Right.
Do you need to formally open it? or-
There's no members of the public who are in the audience. Certainly have the camera,
Just
so they
checking.
can listen to it, but you have in your audience an attorney and 2 staff.
And if anybody would like
Thank you.
to,
Oh, careful what you wish for when you want to be president.
and if anybody would like to provide any comments, please continue to do so.
Boy, was I set up.
If I'd have known that, I'd have
Okay,
passed it
so-
down.
So, thank you very much. I believe you have majority direction. We do have one dissenting opinion, which is, you can consider that for whatever, in any way you wish, but I believe you heard the majority view here.
So just one other thing. So these are ideas, these three maps.
This is where
If you had
all
other
the
ideas, you could say, what if we did this? And the demographer would go back.
Yeah, and I think we did hear, blue 2.0 or blue prime.
There are a myriad of possibilities that are out there, potentially. I mean, it might be hard to draw them.
I have to say that, after looking at the data, looking at the maps, I was unable to figure out how I could come up with a process and a mechanism to come up with something that would better any of these things rationally. It's like something I need to leave to people who have the expertise and the skills in doing it. That's my,
Yeah, and that's my opinion. I know
I tried.
I know where my
started
expertise
trying to-
begins and ends.
I can't do this, there's no way. And I'm not, I'm sort of not too done.
Well, I personally have lived on the coast for 41 years, and I don't think that I could divide the coast up any better or any worse. And I think that from my perspective, what I appreciate is the complexity of the effort and the fact that we're going to come up with something that's reasonable and more representative of the voting population. And, I, for one, would have no problem if the statistics were simply modified from percentages to absolute numbers. I don't think that would be a huge exercise.
We actually got a request for that today. We were able to provide that, and we're happy to provide the numbers as well as the percentages.
At the next meeting.
So we have the numbers.
Yeah.
It's no big deal. It's probably a computer effort for a couple of hours, so I'm fine with that too. But frankly, when I was looking at the way the map was drawn, I couldn't see a better way to do it. So I'm just glad it's you.
Right.
And I'm glad that you're listening and you're involved in defending it. And I'm glad that we've got another overseer,
Right.
because I don't have the capacity to be making those decisions. I mean, I could look at it and think, well, Joe might get elected, but look, Fred can't get elected, or something like that. But that would be gerrymandering. So for me, I just looked at the maps, read the numbers, and I thought, cool, there's 3 great ways to do it. I don't like the way some of the zones look, because it looks sort of screwball to me. Part of the reason I like blue is because that section right there, number 4, to me looks like it has more logic to it. Even though it crosses the highway, big deal. But it just seemed like the breakout was better. And I felt that the way Half Moon Bay kind of rolled up and around El Granada in number 1 seemed to make sense, integrating Princeton. So I just thought it was great. And frankly, I looked at all 3 of them. I put some effort into it. I tried to be astute and intuitive about it. And purple, other than the fact that, you know, we don't have recycled water, worked for me, and it was the best. I just went away from it and I thought, wow, this one kind of makes sense. And
We got 2 now.
Okay, let's try and wrap this up so we
I
can take a
really-
small break
I
for
re-
the
Yeah, so I really appreciate it. I want to thank you for your effort. Glad you're here. I'm glad it's you and not, you know, we had somebody stand in for you guys once, and it was fun, but, you know, you do have a lot more
real quick,
salient
we're getting on to our regular
So,
meeting.
my only comment is that we do have to redo this in very shortly.
Yeah.
And I see this as our first pass at it, and we get to try it out, shake it down, and then re-ramp it after the next census. And that would be an excellent time for us to gather input from the constituents and ask them how the new division is working.
Thank you.
Will
With
you be
that,
back at the next meeting?
Either myself or Shalice, depending on her baby, will be at the next meeting.
Is it possible to do a person density map instead of a aerial density map?
Well, we can show you, we had a population density in our last presentation. We're happy
I
to,
mean, what's deceptive about these maps is that you look at them and you see areas, and the areas look smaller, bigger, whatever. What really matters is the number of people per square foot. And so if we had a map
I don't
that-
see the relevance there. I think it's population per
What matters
district.
is
Isn't
how
that?
much are in zone, that's what it
It's,
matters.
it's not per
Matters
square foot, it's per zone, per
Doesn't
district, I
matter.
believe, so I'm not sure the relevance
It
there.
matters how many people are in the zone.
Yeah,
Doesn't matter what the population per square foot of the zone
yeah,
is.
no,
No, it doesn't.
I'm going to close the public hearing. Thank you very much. It's closed.
Point.
Thank you.
Okay, I will.
What I said.
Because we got a long night.
Yeah, see, you're president now. These meetings take forever.
I know, yeah, and I know I'm going to hear, so, all right. Called back to order. Welcome back. Thank you very much. This is the regular meeting of the Coastside County Water
You
District.
better go roll call, man, because
Yeah.
Joanne's getting mad.
Yeah, I know. Where the hell is it in my, I got the 6 o'clock one.
Oh, you can have mine, you want mine?
No, it's just behind the front page.
Yeah,
It's, keep going. Now go to the, no.
Here's one. You want this one?
Okay, no, I got it,
Here it
okay.
is.
So, roll call, please.
Yes. Director Larmer?
Here.
Vice President Reynolds?
Yes.
Director Coverdell?
Here.
Director Feldman?
Here.
President Michelson?
Here, okay, all right, for pledge of allegiance, and Ken, should I make you do it since you had
No,
me
Vice
do it?
Vice President.
Oh, okay, all right, Vice President Reynolds, please. To the flag.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen. Please, God,
Okay.
raise up a president.
Oh, my God, it's getting I'm a little rusty here in the presidential duties. Okay,
Public comments.
public comment, boy, I tell you, we're gonna, did you have any public comment during your tenure? I mean,
They came every meeting.
we don't get a lot of Roger. So, seeing no blue sheets, I will move forward to consent calendar, and I do recall it was my month to review claims, and they appeared to be in order. Do any of the directors have any questions and/or items they would like to discuss or pull?
I'd
No,
like to move that we approve the consent calendar as presented.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Been moved and seconded. John, please.
Yes. Director Larmer?
Yes.
Vice
Yes.
Director Coverdell?
Yes.
Director Feldman?
Yes.
President Michelson?
Yes. Meetings attended. Director comments.
None and none.
None. Because we're having such a late meeting this month. It syncs up with Bosco on the same week, so it's Thursday, and I'm sure it's just going to be just more lawsuits. Yay. Handsome Bridget likes that. Lots of billable hours over at Bosco. Okay, I'm moving on to general business, please.
Okay, so I would like to introduce Jeff Palmer from FEDAC and Brown. FEDAC and Brown is our auditor, and you've been auditing now for the last 3 years?
Yes.
And so we had our audit this fall, and so he is here to give a presentation regarding our audit results. So,
Good evening. Okay. Starting off on the first slide here, I'd like to say that our audit was performed in accordance with auditing standards generally accepted in the United States of America. To describe the process of our audit, we come out 2 separate instances. The first time we come out is our interim field work. That's where we assess the district's internal controls. We do this by interviewing staff and management, documenting narratives and walkthroughs, and verifying and determining whether those controls are operating effectively. At that point, we go back to our office, we plan for our final field work, we come back out again, and that's when we're agreeing to the year-end balances to supporting documentation, and we're performing substantive test work on those balances. We also perform analysis of key relationships on the balance sheet and income statements. We issue several reports as part of our audit. The first is our independent auditor's report, which we issued an unmodified clean opinion. That's the highest form of assurance we can provide as the auditor. It reads, in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the Coastside County Water District as of June 30, 2019. The next report that we issue is our management report. This is where we discuss our findings. As a result of our audit, we did not identify any material weaknesses within the district's internal control structure. The third report is our communication to the governing board. In this report, we describe our responsibility under the U.S. generally accepted auditing standards, the scope of our audit, the responsibility of management for accounting practices and policies. We document the accounting estimates which are most significant, which would be cash and investments, capital assets, OPEB, and the pension amounts. In the report, we include any corrected and/or uncorrected misstatements, which you can see at the back of that report. And we also indicate that we had no difficulties encountered in performing the audit and no disagreements with management. All right, at this point, I'd like to go over the financial highlights. And on the condensed statements of net position, you're going to see that total assets and deferred outflows of resources increased by approximately $1.8 million. Total liabilities and deferred inflows of resources decreased by approximately $547,000, and total net position increased by $2.3 million. On the condensed statements of revenues, expenses, changes in net position, you'll see the total revenue increased by $166,000. Total expenses increased by $317,000. The total overall change in net position was $2.3 million, a decrease of $150,000 from prior year. Before I ask if there's any questions, I'd like to thank Mary, Gina, the district staff, and the board for their cooperation extended to us throughout the audit. At this point, are there any questions?
If you were to put that in lay terms, would this be considered a good job?
Absolutely. Yes.
Would you
Yes,
be able to
great
actually
job.
say, oh,
yes.
Great
thank
job.
you very much. You did
Thank
a
you.
great job, too.
So, well, look, I always like things in kind of like relative terms. What's the norm? I mean, in special districts, I mean, 80, 90, 100, what's,
The norm as far as what?
as meeting the standards that this district here has met, are we in the 80th percentile, 90th percentile, 100, is everybody meeting it?
I would say you guys are in the higher percentile of my agencies. Usually a lot of my agencies are affected more adversely with the GASB and the pension. The pension and the OPEB-related amounts can affect them more negatively. In this case, this past year, it was positive overall. So I'd say that's probably the biggest thing. But overall net position is great. Your unrestricted net position that's on the statement, the condensed statements of net position, shows an unrestricted net position of 4.8 million, which is available for future use. So that's great. That's an increase of 2.1 million.
Yeah, and that's been a
prior year.
conscious effort of this board here, and it's nice to see it realized and acknowledged. So
Right.
because we've played with that ad nauseum. So good. Goal achieved. Thank you.
Okay.
As much as we like you, how often are we supposed to change auditors?
We,
No, right, that was-
5+ years.
Oh, okay, 'cause I know.
So we're in
I've-
good shape right
I've
now.
been over, or going on 20 years. I'm sorry, historically, it's just you might be on the take, or,
Right.
something might be going on, so historic, not that you are.
The
but
the law requires actually partner rotation
Okay.
every 6 years. So as long as you have partner rotation, you can technically stay
Oh,
with
so you
the
can
same
stay with
firm.
the same firm,
Yes.
but that meets the spirit of the law by change. Okay, that's
Yes.
good to know. Okay, now just a more procedural question. Thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else?
Well, it's been a while since I read one of these, and I spent most of the day reading this one. Reminds me of a comment that Paul Volcker made when he became chair of the Fed. He said, "Stop using so much jargon." I wish there was some way to use less accounting terms and more common sense things that a person like myself could read and understand, without having to go to the web to find out, like, what's a net position? I mean, it's certainly not the value of this district, but so in fact, maybe for the people who might actually try to read this and who might be viewing us, could
Sure.
you give a simple explanation for what net position is?
Well, actually, the net position is not necessarily the cash that you can use or that you have in the bank or that you can actually spend on anything. It is really the value of the agency in relative terms to, if you're looking at last year comparative to this year. That's
So if
the
we were
value
gonna
of the
sell it,
agency.
that's our value.
Increase.
Let's sell it.
Yeah.
By the way, another comment I want to make is that I was on this board 10 years ago. I haven't read a report like this one. This was really thorough, so you guys do a great job. I was really amazed at the detail that was in it, and I actually understood some of it, but certainly not all of it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Did the prior presentations, we have these summaries? I'm trying to remember. It's been a while.
We did have presentations, but
This
Not
is
as
good.
sim-
I like this. I somehow or
yeah.
other, I always remember going through the report as it was discussed. And this is a nice
They did.
management summary. I don't know if you did this in the past, fine,
Well,
but
I think, we've had some recaps, but not to the point of
No, this
these
is
types
good.
of
I mean, this made it
presentations. So
easy.
this is really nice.
this is like
Right.
a management summary that you need just to be able to understand without having to go through all the detail. So I like this, whatever that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Thank
So
you very much.
I sort of have two questions, too. In terms of our ability to borrow money, how would you see this relative to this report? Are we in a better position today than we were a year ago, in the same position, or in
Right.
a worse position?
I would say absolutely in a better position. And the fact that the district was just able to go out and refinance and reissue debt, I think was shows positively.
Yeah.
on the
And
district.
also about the CalPERS future liability.
Mhm.
How does that look? I mean, can you make a guesstimate about how safe we are and how likely
Right.
we are to experience a huge disruption if CalPERS investments go down or?
The district is in a cost-sharing pool, and so the overall results are tied to everybody. I'd say objectively, this district, as compared to other districts, is well-positioned as far as being the difference of fiduciary net position Those are all the net investments that all your contributions go into against the actual total liability is positive. It's over 70%, I believe, and that should be documented in the supplementary tables in the back of the report. That's pretty much where you want to be. Being higher, lower per se, I would maybe be concerned if you were under 60 or around 50%. Some agencies have decided to throw more money at it, but every single year when the actuary comes out and they redo their actuarial tables, you run the risk of taking cash flow that you can use right now, throwing it against that liability. Next year the assumptions change and you're back at having a liability again. So, you know, our recommendation has always been pay it as, you know, you're required to pay it, and that's what the district has been doing, as opposed to trying to pay it down.
Great.
It's interesting. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Anything else? We can-
job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much
Good
for
job,
the
thanks.
very positive report, and now we can look at our financial review, which would be a natural.
I think we need to
I think we accept
accept
the,
it.
Oh, we just, okay.
take action to accept.
Okay.
I move we accept the auditor's report for fiscal year ended June 30, 2019.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion or vote, please?
Yes, Director Larmer,
Yes.
Vice President Reynolds, Director Coverdell.
Yes.
Director Feldman.
Yes.
President Michelson.
Yes, thank you. Okay, now our quarterly financial review.
Okay. So, we're 6 months into the year, and we're looking pretty good right now. We have, in terms of our revenue, I'll first say with our, just in general with our water revenue, we're pretty flat to budget and flat to last year. With our non-operating revenue, we had an ERAF payment early in the year in August, $237,000, that normally we would get in the February period. We're going to get money in February as well, but there's a change in timing. So that's a large bulk of the non-operating revenue. We've had some higher county tax receipts, and also over the last year or two, we've put a lot more money into LAIF, and we're getting, LAIF interests, and so our interest income's up by $58,000. With our expenses, we're $197,000 below budget, or 3.5% below budget. That's largely due to we are getting local source water versus getting water from SFPUC. And also we've had lower electricity costs because of using local source water. We also have had some, savings and personnel-related costs, and these were, carry on because we had our budget included, a full-time general manager, an assistant general manager, and as you know, Dave worked half-time, so we had the savings, plus we've had vacancies. We also have savings in our employee retirement this year in terms of, we put in money, we have an amount that we put in for what we call our unfunded liability for pension, what Jeff was just talking about in terms of, we get a number every year we have to pay. This year, it was, the amount was lower than what we had budgeted. And I will say it's kind of a one-time, the number's going to go back up again. But a few years, like 3 years ago, there was some, the investments were higher, so we got a little bit of a break on that. We've had some, some of our cost savings were offset by some higher maintenance costs, but some of that's just timing. We had our dredging at Denniston, and, we've had some, pump refurbishments and some things, so, and we've had some, additional vehicle-related expenses, but all in all, we're in good shape from a income statement. With our capital, I just want to say that we're really moving fast and furious with our spending. I think we've really gotten a lot of projects off the ground, and we've, to date, we've spent, $3.1 million, and on those same projects, we have about another 900 left on those that are committed. These are related to existing projects like the Stone Dam Pipeline and the Casa Del Mar neighborhood. We do have some projects we're going to be coming to the board and in the next couple months that we have plugged in, and so we'll be talking about those with our facilities committee meeting. But we have the Denniston generators. You approved $200,000 for the purchase, and then we're going to be coming for an installation cost of another $200,000. We are planning on, we really want to get the Highway 92 portion of on the Causalino property completed in the spring. So we'll be coming to you for that. And also we'd really like to get the Denniston Tank Road repaired. And we're just waiting for a study, and we'll be coming to you for that. So hopefully, so anyway, we're at a fairly fast clip here for the year.
So I had looked at the capital expenditures, and I have to say that the Feldman factor does not seem to be an issue this fiscal year yet. And so I want to commend everybody for getting cracking and starting to do these things. And you may even overrun the capital budget if I read the numbers right here.
Well, we did.
With last year's stuff that's coming into this year as well. I would hope that some of this is a result of the fact that we now have EKI in the mix, and that because we agreed that would be a way for us to do these projects going forward, that's actually had a positive effect on making some of these projects happen. And so that was a good decision that we made to actually engage them to do these pre-project stuff, engineering and planning and stuff. And it seems like maybe this stream is easier to control and actually get rolling as a result of that. That's my opinion.
Yes, they've been able to help us tee up these projects.
Yeah, it's working, so to speak, which is good.
Yeah, no, I absolutely second that. That was the intention of this board, and to see it realized, yeah, we couldn't be happier. And staff and concert with EKI has really made it happen, so
Right,
thank you all.
Definitely good news.
Good, thank you. Next,
Thank you.
the budget process timeline?
Yes, we're diving right into our budget and our rate hearing process that will conclude in June. The key points with this, we actually made a couple adjustments with the schedule. Actually, the main adjustment is that we're really going to push to have the rate hearing at the June board meeting, so we don't have to have something at the end of June. We know that, sometimes there's conflicts with, schedules and things, so we will be pushing for that. At our March board meeting, we'll have, a working session with Sanjay Gar from Raftellus, so we can look forward to that as well. So.
Yeah, and thank you. That was one of my goals, was to try and sync up the budget meetings with our regular meetings. It just makes it easier for the directors, for staff, and it's just, we can look forward, and we know what dates we're aiming for. So thank you very much for this schedule. I hope everyone appreciates that and can work with it. Thank you.
So.
Okay. Subcommittees. Are we at subcommittees now? Okay. I did take a look at the subcommittee sheet. I know besides using the gavel once in a while, and I already had to use it the first night. Thank you, Director Larimer. One of the few things that the board president can do is rejigger the subcommittees and set agenda items. So that said, 20 years here, and I've never been on facilities, and I did seek Director Larimer's approval for my taking his position on facilities in light of the fact that I've never been on facilities. And I would look forward to working with Director Reynolds. That was really about the only change I had in mind. Jim, if you wanted my seat on Human Resources, you're absolutely welcome to that. And then I would ask, does anyone else have any thoughts or concerns or subcommittees that they feel that they would like to sit on or like to vacate?
Do you want to do the HR seat?
Pardon?
Do you want to do the HR seat?
The what?
The Human Resources seat.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Okay.
Okay.
So with those two items in mind, I understand that we need a motion now, that things
Yeah,
things
so-
have changed.
Yeah, so this is a great opportunity, and it sounds like you've already done that, is take a fresh look at the standing committees and the advisory committees and make sure that they still have the purposes for which they're intended and that the district still needs them.
Hey, you know, my seat on Montero Mutual Interest is up for grabs if anybody wants it. Oh, darn, all right.
Does that ever meet?
No,
Oh, the president's getting fired up this year, don't he?
Yeah, the president will do it.
yeah.
Fired up, and he'll be going as the president, which would be a wonderful,
Yeah.
Yep.
wonderful approach.
Yep.
Well, I knew
And I
that.
think the four of us are unanimous that
Yeah.
that's a really good
I
choice.
think it'd be fantastic.
I tell you, this is a real hot seat I'm feeling
All
right
right.
now. All right, guys, thank
We
you.
should keep
There's-
moving.
There's probably a permanent gavel in it.
Okay,
So
I'm
just
talking
as a
about a wall
reminder,
plaque, not a
All
position.
right, so,
as a reminder, advisory committees have a temporary nature and a specific purpose. Otherwise, they will be converted into standing committees. That's why we want to review them every
Oh,
year.
got it, okay.
And as a reminder, standing committees are subject to the Brown Act. So you need to notice agendas and meetings, whereas advisory committees are not subject to the Brown Act. So there's a specific reason for those distinctions. And so it's good you're revisiting them and determining that they still have a specific purpose and a limited time frame. Because at some point, you may want to either convert your advisory committees to standing committees or basically say, we've either completed our purpose or it's no longer necessary, and then remove them. And if you remove an advisory committee, you can always recreate it in the future. So it's not always done. And then the other thing you do, and as your president just did, is the president really identifies who sits on those committees. And then it used to be past practice was done, but last year, the board took action to affirm these committees and the composition of the committees, and it takes a board action to undo that. So if there's changes, then it does require board action.
so can we,
Changes in staffing or changes in the
Changes in
name of?
membership.
Oh, in both, okay.
Because the board approved
So-
both last year.
Okay.
there were two changes.
so can I make a motion to that effect?
Yeah.
Can I ask a question first, though? Would it make sense for us to split this so that we can change directors without a board action? Without a board vote?
That is up to the board.
I mean, I don't care, I just,
We're here, we can vote on
Yeah, I would,
it.
yeah,
It's no big deal.
yeah.
okay.
Care to make the motion?
Oh, sure, sorry.
So
So
part of
I tender that we update our Coastside County Water District Board committees, and we'll go with standing committees of Finance, Human Resources, and District Facilities Committee. And we'll go with Advisory Committee of Montero Water's District Mutual Interest, Recycled Water, and Strategic Planning Committee. And then for assignees, we would have, for Finance, it'll stay Coverdale and Feldman, and, no, so then it'll be Jim and Bob for Human Resources.
Feldman and Nichols.
And then
Merriman.
for facilities will be Chris and Glenn for facilities. And then there weren't any other changes, right?
Perfect, thank you.
That work?
Yep.
And I'll second that. Joanne, please?
Yes, Director Larmer?
Yes.
Yes.
Director Coverdell, Director Feldman,
So the
President.
advisory committees
Yes, thank
are
you.
not brown, you don't have to be noticed?
Yeah.
So why?
Because that's what the question that Director Larimer asked me is, why do advisory committees, why aren't they subject to the Brown Act? And it's because the Brown Act specifically says that advisory committees are not subject to the Brown Act.
Wow.
But there's specific requirements for having advisory committees, and I went over some of those a little earlier. Otherwise, they get converted to standing committees, and then they
they're
are
subject.
subject to the Brown Act.
Huh.
So what we are doing is we're specifically following the requirements of the Brown Act.
That's why that mutual assistance committee's got a rush.
Uh-oh.
Is there a logic behind that? The intent of the legislature in making such a law?
It's been a while since I looked at the legislative intent, but my understanding is that advisory committees are ones where you just want to be able to get together for a short period of time and quickly and deal with things that might be either sensitive for standing committees, or might be, you don't want to need to follow the procedures for the standing committees. Now, there are some agencies that have either A, don't have any advisory committees, or B, have said that as a matter of board policy, the advisory committees are subject to the Brown Act. But as your general counsel, my recommendation is you follow the law. Because there's a reason for a law, and there's been sometimes where it's been beneficial to have advisory committees not subject to the requirements of the Brown Act.
And it's only two on the committee.
Yes, it may only be two.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
I just wanted to state the law.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you for the Brown Act primer.
I will send you a bill.
So, moving on to our annual
LAFCO.
LAFCO. This is,
Oh.
we do this every year, so that should there be in a meeting, all five of us qualify is kind of the short version.
Yeah.
And do we need to formally? Okay. Is everyone in agreement with
Yeah.
how we've done it historically?
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure everyone's on the same page and the rationale behind it. Okay, Joanne, please.
Well, can we
You
actually
need a
do that by a
motion?
motion?
So,
Okay, I'll make a motion that we appoint any member of the Coastside County Water Board member to be an alternate to participate in the San Mateo Local Agency Formation Commission election of officers.
okay, I'll second that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Now,
Director Larmer?
Yes.
Vice
Yes.
President Reynolds, Director Coverdell?
Aye.
Director Feldman?
Yes.
President Michelson?
yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
We should put that on the consent calendar.
Yeah, it's just something that gets done every year. James, please, give us your update.
Evening, board members. It's been a busy month with operations and budgeting, but I'll give you a little rundown of what we've been up to. The Nunes Water Treatment Plant sludge scrapers in the said basin had some electrical problems. We ended up pulling new wire back to the contactor and had to rebuild the control bucket and also replace the motor. Staff was very crafty of keeping it going with the Milwaukee drill instead of dealing with the electrical hazards. Took a while to do it, but we're gonna put in for a Milwaukee commercial. It was pretty crafty, but it worked. A little crude, but crafty. A couple of hydrants, had a main break at Burning Tree Road. I think Director Feldman was out there visiting the staff. Thank you for keeping an eye on them.
How'd the truck look?
Huh?
How'd the truck
Oh,
look?
I saw a monster truck again, yeah, and it was my Christmas visit with monster truck.
Yeah.
And one of the bulldozer guys, whatever, was there. No, it was hard work. They had been there for a while on Christmas Eve,
Wow.
Christmas Day, right?
Wow, literally, actually.
25th, yeah, it
Wow,
was, yeah.
wow.
No, it was in the evening. They were there from 4 to 9, I think.
No, that just shows staff
No, man, it
dedication. That's
was
amazing.
there were half of, what, 5, 6 guys there?
Yes.
Oh, wow. No,
Very
it was-
dedicated. It's nice
fixed
they
it
answered the
quick.
phone.
They only shut the water down for the minimum.
Yeah, boy, with all the
Yeah.
Christmas dinners being gone, like,
No, it was
Yeah.
slightly after that, but they did it as quickly and as crisply as you could.
Thanks.
No, I appreciated that.
Thank you.
I appreciate him.
Yeah, I do
He did a
too. They're
job.
good group of guys.
Nothing like being right in the thick of it, eh? I
Yes.
turned my water on and I said, whoops, no water, what's going on here? I thought my filter had gone south on me or something, so I did all that and it still didn't go on. I said, wait, something's fishy, so I called the hotline, San Mateo County, and about 5 minutes later, a truck comes pulling up, and it was one of your guys, Devin, and he comes and says, hey, we're working on it, Mr. Feldman. I just happened to be, contiguous with where I live. Yeah, that's how I found out. It's very funny.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Pump one motor at Crystal Springs had an electrical short. We fixed the lugs inside the terminal box there. Did not damage the motor, we're happy to say.
Oh,
That's
good,
new,
yeah,
isn't
yeah.
it? That
Yeah,
motor
we just bought those, didn't we?
Yes.
How much did that motor cost?
That was
$9,000?
50, 60,000.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because there was discussion over all the sensors when I came to the board, I remember.
Wow.
So luckily, the motor didn't get damaged, and it tripped out, and it was only some wiring. We just had to get the proper lugs for it.
Nice.
Replaced the center vent screen at Cahill Tank up on top of the ridge. Replaced a couple of pressure relief valves on the air compressors at CSP. Every 5 years, we have to have a pressure vessel inspection. They always ask for that, so we just thought we'd go ahead and get ahead of the game before they come out and tell us to replace them. So those are on a 5-year schedule. Denison Water Treatment Plant, contact clarifier lower access hashes had to be, new ones had to be ordered. One's been leaking, the other one's a little bit corroded. They're out there, so when Denison shuts down, we'll get those installed. Treatment staff ran Nunes Water Treatment Plant for a 10-day stretch on Pillarcitos well water with Denniston online. I thought it was a great achievement. They're very proud of it, that we were essentially getting free water during that 10-day period.
And how many gallons a minute can you do?
At Denniston?
No, just
the wells.
just from the
Well,
wells?
it depends on how much water's in the creek. I think we're doing about 400 then.
But it was enough.
Yeah, and we had Denniston running around 5,
Okay.
350.
Oh, no, wow,
5.
that's, yeah, all free. Good.
How's the
Yeah.
pipeline from Stone Dam going?
I haven't got there yet.
Oh, I didn't see it on there.
I'll tell you all about it in a second. Denniston filter aid chase water pump installed by staff in-house. I thought they did great. The sources there, Denniston Reservoir and Wells, Pillarcitos Wells, Crystal Spring Pump Station. The new SCADA project is going well. Latest update is they're about 75% complete. Denniston's almost completely done. They've almost finished Main Street. Nunes is in the works, and Crystal Springs is going to be coming up next. So I'm happy with the progress there, and we'll have, I'm sure, an extensive punch list of little things to fix on the interface. Stone Dam Pipeline Project.
I see it now, yeah. So 600 feet to go?
Just about 600 feet to go at the top.
Are we having a party when it's done?
It's up to you guys.
That's
There are
pretty
picnic
Gonna have to hike
grounds
up
up there. Leoto
Oh, there
used to have
are.
parties up there. Yeah,
How's
yeah.
the mud?
It's muddy.
I believe it.
Yeah, so weather permitting, we've had a couple of days where we haven't been able to work.
Yeah.
But every day it's dry, they're out there. They're
But
out
you
there
started
today.
them up at the top, so they've been working down towards better terrain?
Contractually, we couldn't tell them where to start.
Oh.
But being good contractors, they started at the bottom, got to the high point, stopped there, and then went to the meter and started building backwards so that they could, the tricky part of the elevation that doesn't have a lot of fall, they wanted to be real careful with that.
Yeah, it's quite a job.
Yeah, so they've done fantastic
Great,
on it.
almost done,
Well, that's good news.
Yeah, so hopefully we'll be updating
And
you
has the
next
install
month.
been going fairly smoothly?
It has. It has. No hitches, no glitches. The PUC inspector's been very cooperative, and the
Oh,
PUC
good.
staff have been really
Okay.
cooperative.
Are they there full-time, or they just kind of come and go?
It's usually just the staff that's out in the watershed. I think the inspector only went out there maybe once or twice.
So it's not like you're looking
It's a
over.
long drive, and the inspector, he has to cover East Bay, he's all over the
Okay,
place.
so it's not like there's somebody there looking over our shoulder.
No, no, but Jim's there looking after the critters.
Steele.
Right, yeah, Jim is, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're gonna come in on budget on this?
The changes that we have initiated was we decided to rock the lower half, so that was an
Okay.
addition, and that's roughly $20,000.
Well, that's
And then
reasonable.
there's
yeah.
been a discrepancy on the actual linear footage of pipe,
Oh, interesting.
and we're finding that we're short by about 60 feet. So,
Yeah.
not bad at all considering, so we're gonna have probably a change at the end for the extra footage. We're
And it's
not-
cold weather, so the pipe will shrink, so that makes sense.
Right, so that'll be about, at 290 a linear foot, it's gonna be about $18,000 change on that.
Okay.
So we've done quite well on that.
Good. Well
And
done.
Andrini's been very fair with us. Casa Del Mar PRV project is almost complete. Stolasky should probably be done in about a week, and we'll have Clay Valve come out and do the startup on the valves on the 23rd. It's part of the price of the valves. They come out and do startup, write down all the data. So they have a couple of back T samples, and we've done pretty good on that. We've had a few changes, and we'll update you at the next board meeting on what those are. EKI is making progress on the Grandview and the Pine Willow Oak main replacement project design. Denniston Tank Culvert replacement and paving project, we're waiting for the geohazard report, and then we'll be able to finalize that design and go out to bid. And the generator, Denniston generators, still waiting on the air district, and I've decided to go ahead and order them with the knowledge that it's very doubtful that they're gonna add any further requirements like a catalytic converter. So we're gonna get submittals in about a week, and then it'll be about 12 weeks before they're delivered. So we'll probably go out to bid in the next month or so, and then come to you with an award. If you have any questions, I'm here at your pleasure.
Thank you. Any questions? No. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Good job.
Thank you. Okay. Kathleen, now no. Water districts in the hot seat for water consumption instead of the customers, I see.
The water district. Well, first we'll talk about the update on the regional water demand study. So, I believe it was May was the kind of the kickoff for the regional demand study that is part of the urban water management plan that will use this data in our urban water management plan. So basically, Bosca is the lead on this demand study. They've hired Medaus Water Management as the consultant, and we're working with them. We're about halfway through the process, so it's on schedule. Will probably be done around May of 2020 with results from the study. And then we'll share the results with the board. So we've gotten quite a few calls, and Aqua did an alert to all the water agencies, or an advisory, I guess it would be. There's a lot of information going around that isn't quite correct about the new water conservation legislation. So there's concerns that the State Water Resources Control Board is going to go after individuals, and that they're actually going to look at their actual use on a day-to-day basis. And that's not the intent of the legislation or the regulations, and it's not how it's written. So I did ask one person that called to forward me what they had, but they never did. So I'm not quite sure where this misinformation is coming from, but Aqua did provide a fact sheet and frequently asked question documents that I've included in the board packet, and I have copies here at the district for our customers that is a pretty good summary of the upcoming water conservation regulations will be in
Better
this next
articulates
decade.
what's going on. I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
Is it possible to post this on our website somewhere?
Sure, we could post it on the website.
So if people are interested with a heading, because they could take a look, read the new water use efficiency legislation facts for,
Yeah.
just in case somebody's interested, I'll have a place to go see what and we can tell them when they call, it's online and the data's all there.
Yeah,
Or whatever.
yes, definitely.
And you put it on the counter out there. right?
Yeah, we have it at the counter.
Yeah, but maybe online would help too.
So,
It's very good,
yeah, hopefully, as time goes on, we'll have better information for our customers, because right now, the state board staff is still finalizing a lot of the regulations and still doing studies regarding the irrigation portion of the requirements, how they're gonna measure it, definitions of irrigable land. So it's, so it's kind of still in process, but the one thing I reassure the public is that the state board is not going to go after
Right.
individuals.
But
There-
the districts would be subject to.
Yeah, so if there's any
If these standards
fines
aren't
or
met.
Subject to it.
information orders,
Right.
because we as a district, the district is not meeting our targets and goals, they'll come after the district. Now, of course, if we got heavily fined, that could be passed down to the customers through, its rate, payers will be paying for that. But so far, I mean, we're pretty, we don't have everything, but we're in a pretty good place compared to a lot of other water districts in the state. So, so we're not too concerned, but we are monitoring it.
Okay,
and-
you're staying on top of it.
Yeah,
sure.
trying to stay on top of it. So we're not surprised by anything. So,
Very good.
I can't drive 55.
Yeah. Well, it's
you can send me Hagar.
a good thing we live in a fog zone. Thank you. Thanks for staying on top of that, because anytime you hear government intervention, fines, I know it gets people concerned.
It's ugly.
Okay, thank you. Number 8, I mean, we're blowing through this here. Okay, Director, agenda items, request for future board meetings. Do you have something?
I do. It's a difficult thing to bring up, but I think it's important. I think that the director fees should be increased. They haven't been increased as long as I can remember, 26 years. Maybe it's a way also, maybe this is rationalization, but maybe it's a way to incentivize somebody to run for the office.
I have heard that argument used as an incentive. I'm not, here trying to make a case to give myself a raise, but I have heard that used as an argument to get, because we just went through this entire exercise of, redistricting, reaching into a demographic population that probably earns less than we do. I mean, I don't know how to put it politically correct, but it would absolutely, you're absolutely right. It would act as or potentially act as an incentive. So in concert with what we're doing with legal guidance, I would support that as a future agenda item.
Can I put a tweak to that?
Sure.
I think that for us to discuss it, it would be really helpful if staff prepared what other districts.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that would be
So
part of the drill, yeah.
And give them some time so that maybe when staff has felt they've had a chance
Yeah,
to
yeah.
pull other districts and put that together
Look at
and
the
it fits in
database.
our agenda, that it go on our agenda. Because I think it is I think your points are very valid. And I think that if we give staff some time to study it, and an agenda item, when they feel prepared, that would be great.
No, thank you for bringing that up.
I don't know, maybe I'm having hallucinations. I thought there was at one point an increase within the 26 years.
There was. It went
There
from.
was one, not 26.
When I first came on board, it was
It's a long
100.
time ago, but.
It was during Ev Asher's tenure, it went from 100 to 150.
Right, so there was one about 10, 11 years ago. So there was, just to be factual, but I think it's a good idea to look, see what's going on in the other agencies and then have a discussion.
I think the cost of paying to be in the voter pamphlet is more than what we get
Yes.
reimbursed.
Oh, yeah, well, obviously, it's
So that,
$275,
it'd be
yes.
interesting to look at, because it does place a burden on people running for this.
No, I understand, I think it'd be good to have some information, some data.
I'll do some
And then we have
research.
something to work from versus just picking numbers out of
Yeah.
there. But I think it's a good idea to take a look at it, I agree.
Yeah, no,
Maybe it makes it more conducive to others when they think about this as an option.
Well,
will
I
do
actually
some
had,
research.
Thank you.
I actually had a,
There's legal requirements for doing that, so. I'll work
No,
with
yeah,
you.
we have to, we'd like to know the legal.
Yep.
I actually had a person who wanted to run for office, and that person asked me, is their compensation sitting on the board? And when I told that person what the compensation was, boom, their interest went to zero. And it's potentially a person that would be really good on the board, but,
I did look into
it's a commitment, and
Yeah.
See how it goes.
Thank you for bringing it up. Anything else? Then we could go into closed session.
Well, I forgot we had a closed
Correct,
session.
so it's 7:50, and the board is going to convene in closed session pursuant to California Government Code Section 54956.9 subsection D2. Conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation, one potential case. We can now convene into closed session.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a brief break while we can clear the
Yes.
room.